Hi, I'm Anna Denton-Jones, and in this first session of 2023, I wanted to wish everybody Happy New Year and to talk about a recent case that I was tragic enough to read all the way through, involving somebody with anxiety that was triggered by outside of work things, but obviously was impacting on the employer, as is often the way. So somebody who is experiencing anxiety can get themselves into a bit of a cycle around these things where if you're off work, you worry about the fact that you're off work. If you're in work, perhaps you're not really well enough to be in work, and it all sorts of feeds off each other. In this particular case, the employee ended up claiming constructive dismissal, and she was successful, which is what piqued my interest. She was awarded £22,300. Now, her case centred around a couple of things. The first aspect, in which she claimed there had been a breach of the implied term of trust and confidence, was around the way her manager spoke to her around her absences. So there'd been some commenting about her medication and treatment that she was receiving, and if you like, questioning it. Now, the tribunal were quite scathing of the manager in that regard, because whilst the manager might have some experience of family members or other people who they know have suffered from mental ill health, obviously they are not any kind of medical expert. So to be seen to question the treatment that somebody was receiving, and that perhaps the employee ought to be perhaps questioning the treatment that they're receiving themselves, obviously for the tribunal stepped over a line from reasonable, sensible questions, which might be, oh, you've just described this. Have you spoken to your GP about it? Or have you told your consultant that? Or what do they say when you talk to them about what you've just told me about? Those sorts of questions are going to be perfectly reasonable. But this manager obviously overstepped that line, and it was felt to become quite pressurising, I suspect, implying that the employee wasn't telling the truth about their position. So that was the first angle. The second angle, which was interesting for me, because if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know I talk a lot about the potential conflict of interest between perhaps somebody's job and a side hustle that they might have going on. This individual had posted Facebook posts. She said of the last 6 months, you know, these are the cakes that I have been making and selling in my spare time. But she'd posted it coinciding with a period where she'd been on a holiday and was off on sick. So her colleagues, obviously seeing that, and, you know, you'll all have been there, will know that people get chatty about those sorts of issues and upset at the perception they may have, which could be entirely wrong, about, well, she says she's off on the sick, but obviously she's well enough to be, you know, cake baking. Now, of course, any GP, any medical professional is likely to be saying, if you've got a hobby, if you're doing something that's therapeutic to you, that is helping you to control your anxiety or depression or whatever it is, then, you know, they're going to be encouraging you to do that. So obviously an employment tribunal is going to be very mindful of that. In the particular case, the manager had, bear in mind a context now of where there was an agreement, because the employee was getting upset already. There should have been alarm bells ringing about contact, and feeling anxious about phone calls, meetings, discussions. The manager then rang to talk about the side hustle when there was an agreement in place that the next meeting or the next discussion was going to be on a particular date. So that was felt to overstep that line into from sort of what was necessary. A conversation could have taken place at the agreed time, as opposed to, phoning the employee when they're out and about with their family, triggering further anxiety. But it just shows for me that employers are going to have to start developing, I think, policies around some of these things. So cake making being an obvious side hustle, but lots of people are trying to supplement their incomes at the moment with doing other things that may start off as something as a hobby or therapeutic or not encroaching on employers' time, but can easily grow, like selling things on eBay or Depop or whatever. And employers are going to have to start developing policies about where do those boundaries lie between, we haven't got a problem with you doing that, but we have got a problem with you doing this. So any questions? As usual, it's adenton@refreshinglawltd, the shortened form of limited.co.uk if you have any questions. Thank you very much.